Hey, what's up, podcast? It's Jeff. Just want to jump in here. This is a special bonus episode of Teach Better Talk. This is actually going to be the audio recording from a Facebook Live that our team is doing every single day, Monday through Friday, at 8 a.m. Eastern Time in our Facebook private group. You can get in that group at teachbettergroup.com or go on to Facebook and just search Teach Better Team. You'll see our page and then you'll see the group. Get in there. So here we go, a special bonus episode of Teach Better Talk pulled from one of our Facebook Live videos in our private group at teachbettergroup.com. Hope you enjoy.
Posting every single morning, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday in our private Facebook group, and then later it becomes a bonus episode on Teach Better Talk podcast, and you can access these full videos on YouTube. But guys, this is the only place you can participate live. We want to say good morning to everybody that is joining us for this Monday morning daily drop-in. I was so excited to start my morning this way, so I am in a good space. I am joined by an amazing educator that I was so thrilled you said yes to joining us. So Greg, would you mind kind of introducing yourself, sharing a little bit about what you do in education, and then also you do a lot outside of your day job. So I'd love to just hear a little bit so that our viewers who are slowly entering into this video, getting their coffee ready, can be welcomed and make sure they connect with you as well.
Hi, well, so I'm Greg Walcott. I'm a assistant superintendent for teaching and learning in Woodridge School District, outside in the suburbs of Chicago near Naperville and Downers Grove. And I'm a consultant and wrote a book, Significant 72, Unleashing the Power of Relationships in Today's Schools. I consult around the United States on social emotional learning, response to intervention, assessment, and just a variety of different topics during my vacation days. And additionally to that, I'm an adjunct faculty member at Concordia University and a dad. So I'm pretty busy. Busy.
You don't seem like you do much at all. Geez.
No, kind of like you. There's just, so much time in the day. What am I going to do?
Well, I have to say, Greg, we've had a lot of people on this daily drop-in. We love being able to welcome in educators from around the country to share not only their expertise, but also how they've experienced COVID-19 and supporting teachers. You were someone, though, I was so excited was joining me because I've been following your professional career for quite some time. I've been a fan for a long time. I've interacted with you a few times on Twitter, and I was so honored when we DM'd a few weeks ago. I got a copy of your book, which was such a wonderful blessing. I've loved it. The topic is so relevant. And then you decide to come on this daily drop-in, and selfishly, and I will say good morning to all these amazing people that are joining us right now and commenting, but selfishly, I was just excited to get a conversation with you. So the fact that we're then streaming it is totally just a perk, in my opinion. So thank you for being willing to join us bright and early this morning.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to it.
It's great. So every single time we do a daily drop-in, people are going to be commenting. We're totally welcoming questions. If you want to talk shop about COVID-19, remote learning, anything that you're doing with your students that you might still be dabbling with. Greg, I'm not sure if you know, but we do so much in our private Facebook group. I was actually just live yesterday, Sunday night, for our biweekly family check-in, which is a time on Sunday afternoons where we just come together and kind of get into those nitty-gritty questions on lesson planning. So this group is very, it's normal for them to ask a lot of questions. So as they're popping in and saying good morning, we just want to say hello to everybody. I know Jenny's here, Jessica, Deborah, Brianne, Alex. It's just so fun to see everybody kind of popping in here this morning. But as you guys are typing your questions, Greg, tell us a little bit about how you have had to adjust with the current times. I mean, currently, we're both in Illinois right now, which is a blessing. We just got really devastating news on Friday that our schools will not be reopening for the rest of the year. And teachers are hopefully, I talked about this a little yesterday, hopefully in a little bit of a transition mode between mourning the loss of the rest of our school year, but also hopefully moving out of survival mode with remote learning and into some strategic, how can we actually find the silver lining in this whole experience? So what's been your experience since March kind of transitioning into this?
Yeah, I mean, like everyone else, we were just, the bomb kind of dropped. We kind of had an idea the week that we were going to be off, or the about Tuesday, Wednesday of that week. We kind of knew something might be coming, and so I have an incredible team of instructional coaches in my district, and so I had them start, Monday and Tuesday of that week. I had them start pulling together materials and some targeted learning packets that we were going to be able to send home at the elementary. And luckily, that Thursday, it sounded like we might be able to come. And so they were able to scramble and put those materials. I mean, they, God bless them. They spent probably that whole day, photocopying packets, but yet nobody else knew what was going on. Everyone else is continuing to teach. So then that Friday at like 2:00, as it was pretty much shift gears. And so it's just been, it's been amazing, and I don't know if there's a good comparison, but, I think if you, asked a medical doctor to all of a sudden to go be a veterinarian the next day, they've got a lot of the knowledge and the skills to be able to transfer, but it's still totally different. And I think that's kind of what, our experience has been. But like educators across the country, our teachers have just stepped up in ways that I would have never, ever imagined. It's been pretty cool. It's been pretty cool to watch.
I've not heard, there's so many things you just said that I want to dive into. I'm so thankful that we're 7 minutes in and there's already gold happening. But I have to tell you, I love your comparison between a doctor and a vet, because clearly those are both in the medical field. Clearly they both had a lot of schooling. But there's really massive differences between those two jobs. And so I love this analogy between, educators that are shifting. I think a lot of educators felt like they were fish out of water, but almost felt foolish when they went to remote learning. They're like, why don't I know how to do this better? Yeah. And I think the message that we continue to share, and so many educators continue to share with each other, was this is a much larger shift than it might seem for teachers, moving from their classroom, seeing their students every single day, to a remote learning environment. You really do kind of feel like a fish out of water.
Yeah, it's totally different. And, I had a teacher I was talking to the other day from Nebraska, and she was talking about how Jimmy, she said she kind of feels like Jimmy Fallon in that, she's like, Jimmy Fallon's her favorite comedian, and there he is with his live audience. Now he's doing it from his living room. Yeah. And she's like, that's kind of how she feels.
Completely.
Because you strive off that interaction, that connection. And when that connection isn't there, it's like you just are left wondering. You can see in real time the impact you're having face to face, but you can't see that. And so then you second guess yourself, you second guess your techniques, you worry you're reaching your audience, you don't know who your audience really is.
Yeah.
So it's been a tough time, but man, I'm telling you, I think there's going to be teaching before COVID-19 and teaching after, because I think so many teachers are empowered to do things now that they wouldn't have probably been forced to do otherwise. And so now I think they're, and I think that's the nice thing here in Illinois for this next set of time, is that, all right, we kind of got our feet wet. Now let's get to work.
Yeah. And I've really felt the same way. It's funny. I do want to get into kind of what August could look like. So I think that we'll table that. I really want to get to that idea. But I love your analogy. You're talking about the comedians. If you look back at, Jimmy Kimmel, Trevor Noah, all those comedians who then transferred their shows to being in their homes, they all talk about struggling with like no live audience, nobody's laughing at my jokes. Like it's a very awkward piece. Yeah. And I've not thought about it, but you are 1,000,000% correct that as a teacher, I'm feeling the same way. I'm like, I'm making jokes, but like I'm not really seeing my students interacting. or, like the questions that could come up. I think teachers are really great in the moment problem solving when, my dog just jumped into our video, when students have questions. But yeah, I mean, it's completely different when you're problem solving these pieces and you don't have that reaction, because teachers feed off that interaction, and it's really impacting lessons, and it takes away elements of our job that we love,
Yeah, that's why we get in it.
Oh, it totally is. It's for those fun opportunities. We've been actually doing a Google meeting with our students every day. The whole team comes in. I see 150 kids a day. We get a percentage of those that join, and then the teachers that are a part of that. And we've just decided, it used to be a Q&A, and we still offer opportunities for questioning, but we're just playing games for an hour. We love it. It's just interaction time with people that we love interacting with,
Yeah, and I'm sure you're seeing, such a different side of some kids.
Oh,
there are kids that are shining in this environment that weren't shining before. And so how do we, that's one of the sad parts for me about hearing that from so many people that were not going back, because I was really excited to see how, so many teachers would say, geez, Greg, I can't believe how Jimmy was so quiet in class, and now he's bringing all this to the Zoom session or the Google Meets, and I was so excited to see how that changed Jimmy, that confidence, and so I'm hoping that kind of confidence still changes kids, as we go forward in the fall.
So let's talk more about that, because you mentioned that before, and that was really important. I do want to circle back. We talked about this idea. I had mentioned it, and then you brought it up in a even deeper idea of teachers have been in this mode of trying to figure out what's going on. And then there's this moment where we need to get out of survival mode and more identify, okay, what are we actually going to do with this time we have left? And Joe, who's been commenting here, and I'm sorry we haven't been reading these very much, so we will get to them, but Joe and I have actually been sharing messages over Voxer about this idea of we have to start moving into not just necessarily planning, trying to get through the day, but now seeing this as, if it's going to be more long-term, what are some of the powerful things we can now be doing and planning? And so I'm hoping our teachers start to think that way of, we've kind of gotten our feet wet, but what's the next phase of this look like between now and the end of the school year? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think now is that, now we've got our feet wet. Now we can really get creative with experiences, and really start to create some experiences. I think it's so important that, that we this next phase is us saying, all right, yeah, it hurts. Yeah, it's been hard. Yeah, we've gone through a lot. The kids are going through a lot. But now, what do I want kids 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years to look back and remember what happened in COVID-19? I want teachers to look back and say, boy, this is what my teacher had me do during this time. My art teacher had me do all, I've seen all these great art aspects where the art teachers are having the kids go out and do the perspective arts, and so, I want them going back and saying that, I want the kids to be looking back and saying, and telling their kids and telling their friends, when this happened, I was making masks, designing masks for, I was, I want them to look, I want teachers to shift now to, how can I make this the most memorable end of the year in a positive way while still teaching content, and reinforcing those essential priorities of the year. But let's move forward with that kind of idea, and that's kind of where I'm thinking.
I think that is the most important call to action that I've heard over the course of this time, because you're right that I think maybe this is ignorance. So I apologize to anybody listening if you're like, oh my gosh, Ray, you're so out of the loop. But there was a period of time, and I won't admit to how long, where I was like, this is going to pass quicker than everyone else's thinks. We're going to be fine, no stress. And now we really are in a portion of our time this will be talked about forever. This is a part of history. Our students will know exactly where they were at this point in time when we reference it. Similar to many of us for 9/11 and all the other things, we all remember what experiences we were having, where we were in our life during this time. And I love this idea of educators now being able to craft what that narrative looks like years from now. What cool opportunity do we have as teachers to not only give our students learning opportunities that will engage them right this moment, which is what we've been completely chatting about for weeks and trying to, be dynamic, let's explore. But more so, what if we saw this, like you said, where we get to craft the narrative that our students are going to be discussing for 20 years from now, 30 years from now, of the cool opportunities they had. So what if we got nitty gritty with that, Greg? What could that look like? I mean, you said making masks. I love that idea. I know that these ideas are going to change depending on the grade level and the content, but have you seen anything cool that is worth mentioning, or is this kind of something that you hope over the course of the next few weeks really starts to come to fruition?
I think one of the things so I'm a huge proponent of design thinking. And just a huge proponent for design thinking. And so I know a high school in Oklahoma right now, what they did. And again, I think this is a unique time, Ray, because it's the end of the year. So we don't really have to, in many situations, we don't have to teach something new. The grading parameters in most districts across the country have been taken off. So it's pass fail. Mm-hmm. So let's get creative and get fun. So this district in Oklahoma, what they did is they went ahead at high school level and they got permission. They got some online classes from, I think it's called Coursera or something like that. And it's basically free classes in design thinking. So what they did is they started introducing these design thinking ideas to their high school students and then had them pair up. And so that they are going through that entire design thinking process to create something for the world in their community. And that, I think, is one of the coolest ones I've seen, because I think that's where, we all see these, New Balance shoes that's now making masks. We see all these things where people are pitching in, and I think this is our kids' opportunity. They want to do something, they just don't know how. And so to turn around and give them that. And so in this high school, they totally walk through that design thinking process. The teacher does the Zoom check-ins and basically has gone through and done the chat rooms, so the kids have their peer group in the chat rooms. And so I think that's the best one that comes to mind.
Well, and I think that's a great example of a high school because, I'm sure the work you do as well. I work with teachers K through 12 and even college professors that I've been working with recently. And while we all have our specific things, specific vocabulary based on the grade level, and everyone kind of likes to section themselves into a certain part of education, the reality is good teaching is good teaching. And so while we might talk about different ideas differently in a high school setting versus a second grade classroom, this design thinking element, I'm so thrilled you brought this up, is something that you can implement at any grade level in any subject area. And while your facilitation will be slightly different, the scaffolding towards an idea will be slightly different. This is a perfect idea. No matter who you are listening, you have now an opportunity to create problem solvers that actually can do some really important work during this time that we've just gotten, which is such a blessing. So I love that this idea of how a high school impact, if you're a first grade teacher listening or a sixth grade science teacher listening, you can take that same idea and implement that a little bit differently in your classroom, and your students can have a very similar experience. And I think that that's important for educators to see right now, is that we can actually all come together and create purposeful learning experiences, even if we don't teach the same content using the same curriculum map. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it can, and I think you could easily, elementary teachers could easily look into some of the the information around service learning, because that's in essence the same thing, and a scaled down model, and you could do the service learning the same thing. And I know one of our elementary schools is just doing a phenomenal job with service learning. And I'm thinking of a first grade class who invited in a veterinarian, interviewed the veterinarian, found out about what the puppies at the shelter needed, and how they ended up making all these special dog toys with socks and plastic bottles and things like that, after going through that. And so I think we could do those same types of things by leveraging, again, guests in Zoom or things like that. I mean, I think there's a great opportunity. And again, kids are going to look back and remember that. And it's not going to be, I've got this learning packet I've got to do now. It's like, wow, I have a purpose for what I'm doing.
Yeah, I was just doing a training with a few teachers in like a webinar setting last week, where we were talking about these two pillars that, the Teach Better team was kind of like founded on. And obviously we do a lot of different support for districts depending on what educators need. But really these two ideas of mastery learning and community engagement, which is these two ideas of giving the learning back to our students, allowing them to advocate for their needs, kind of have some voice and choice and personalized learning in their wheelhouse. And then on the flip side, using our community to find the relevancy in the content. And you can do that K through 12 or, K through high school or college. So as you're looking at these ideas, these two ideas cannot go away just because we're in remote learning.
Right.
Giving students the opportunity to have ownership in their learning and pace themselves and advocate for what they enjoy and want and what they need is really important in remote learning. We actually just had a blog series that published yesterday with a number of different blogs on this idea. But then as you're talking about taking the service leadership or design thinking and taking this idea using the Teach Further model, which I know a lot of people in this group use, where we can partner with our community leaders and create those extremely relevant learning opportunities right now is perfect. They don't need to step outside of your classroom to see your learning in action. They can actually experiencing it right now in their homes or in their backyard or as they're getting a food delivery next week and see their learning take place. And so if we can take those two ideas and get out of survival mode to actually find some purposeful way to introduce that, I think that we actually can make experiences that students are going to feel excited to talk about after this whole experience is finished.
Yeah, I think one of the things I talk about in my book is we all have these basic psychological needs. I call them the ABCs: autonomy, belonging, and competence. Mm-hmm. Autonomy, belonging, and competence. And right now, when we are, so emotional and using that emotional part of the brain, we feel no control. We feel no control, and we need to feel some type of control over the situation. And so if we can do some of these things that, give the autonomy and the voice and the choice, that make them feel that they're part of something bigger than themselves, and then make them feel that they're successful and good at it, that's going to propel them through from a physical well-being point, as well as, again, down the road.
1,000%. This is a great, we're going to pause here and just remind everybody that we are absolutely taking questions. So feel free. I know we've got a lot so far, a lot of amazing comments who are agreeing with all the analogies you make, Greg. They love that. They've talked a lot about how they really like this idea of being a part of history. We can give a shout out to baby Luke, who's our, I feel like baby Luke's my favorite baby of all time, but he's watching right now, loves to join us during our daily drop-in. So good morning. And I think there's a lot of questions that are going to continue to stream in. Do not forget, if you are listening to this recording after the fact, either as a bonus episode on Teach Better Talk podcast, publishing 7 episodes every single week right now, or if you caught this video on YouTube during our daily drop-in playlist that we have, we really do want to take your questions. We want to engage with you. So feel free to join our private Facebook group over at teachbettergroup.com to actually participate live with us. This is a great space to answer questions, ask questions, and be able to engage with one another. We really do believe that is a huge part of the success of educators right now is staying connected, asking the challenging questions, and being a part of this brainstorming team. So, Greg, I've loved what we've discussed so far. Alex actually just posed a question that I think is worth us discussing a little bit. He says, can you share some concrete examples of implementing those innovative practices in a low-tech remote learning setting? So he specifically, I think, noting, the design thinking that we've discussed, the Teach Further model I know we've mentioned, the grid methods come up, kind of all these little ideas of service leadership, some concrete examples for implementing these innovative practices in low-tech remote learning settings. So any thoughts on that, Greg?
I know. So again, I know with the design thinking, I think even with packets, there's an opportunity to teach some of those things through packets. I think, but I think the piece that I don't know if it's being utilized as well as we could is all everything we could do with our phone. I know a teacher right now who is conference calling her students. Yeah. And so she is, so I think some of those things we can do at Zoom, let's just think of how we could do them on our phone. Yeah. And so this teacher, she had her groups and they were, I think it's Schaumburg, Illinois, and I think it was 4th grade. And that pod of kids had really connected before break. Mm-hmm. So she does a 5-way phone call, on her cell phone where those kids still come together. So I think from a low tech place, I think you could still do some of these group collaboration things via that, definitely through the packets. I think there's still some opportunities like that. So I think, those are the first things that jump to mind.
No, I think you're right, Greg. It's interesting. I've been reflecting on this a lot because every time I go live, and I think I've been clocking some good hours here recently. I'm just saying, there are educators that are asking questions about what to do when their students don't have Wi-Fi, when their students don't have phones, when there's no access to technology. And I'm kind of in this place that has two different viewpoints on this whole idea. One is, I need educators to continue to challenge during live videos and during every other interaction that we have to continue asking these questions about equity. Because I think that these questions about what do I do when I don't have technology for remote learning, my initial reaction is you are in a hard spot. If you are asking questions, and Alex, you are just one. I know that Alex and I have interacted a bunch. I love you, buddy. There's a ton of people that are in this group and that I've seen in other groups that I've been a part of that are like, I don't know what to do. I don't have access to technology. And there's parts of me that I'll give the suggestions on packets. We can talk about phones being maybe an option, even if you don't have a lot of access to technology. A lot of people have smartphones and pieces like that. The reality is if you don't have access to technology, you are in a hard spot right now. There's not a right answer. To be honest, sometimes you get these questions and it feels like a gotcha moment because I'm like, I don't have a solution for you that's going to actually make you feel better. There isn't something that I'm like pulling out of my hat, like, have you done this? And it's this golden ticket to really making sure you're reaching your learners that are, miles and miles across in the district that aren't getting the support we need. It's a massive issue. On the flip side, you have to keep asking the question because we are in a massive equity issue, concern. And if we don't continue to ask about the students and advocate for the students who are disconnected because of lack of technology, it really does need to be an idea that continues to be brought up so that everyone is aware of these hurdles. And so I don't know of any outside of what you suggested, Greg. You had great suggestions on, guided packets, the design thinking idea, using technology that's outside of like a laptop, like a phone or a different device. Those are concrete examples that can absolutely be utilized by any teacher right now. But if you're in a position where they don't have a phone, or you can only send packets every 3 weeks and you're only in your first week. And so you still have 2 weeks to get through before you can send the next batch home. I want you to hear us that you are in a very challenging spot. That doesn't mean that we should be giving up, but I don't know that there's a really good solution right now that anybody has, that if you're in a district with low technology access, this is an issue that needs to be addressed, not because of COVID, but because of just the sake of learning, giving our students access to what they need to be successful.
Yeah, and I think that's where well said. And I think that's where my default always is the relationship piece.
I know.
If you're in that, the one thing we can do is figure out how we can, mail letters, things. I mean, are there other ways? It is definitely, like you said, it is so much more difficult.
Yeah.
So much more difficult. But again, let's push ourselves to think of how we can make it an experience. Those packets we send home, how they're not kill and drill. That we're finding some way to reach out to the kids that isn't about compliance.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about hey, did you get all this work done? It's, hey, I'm here for you. I'm struggling through this just like you are, and let me know what I can do for you, because that in itself will be that experience down the road. I'm going to remember my teacher making personal phone calls.
And isn't it funny, Greg? I think now we've circled back to where we started when we were just like 7 minutes into our conversation of, we originally were sending home packets or doing even activities that when we had technology, we were doing it just for the sake of giving students something because we were all in survival mode. And we now need to begin transitioning out of that. And again, a lot of us are 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, 5 weeks into remote learning. We need to start transitioning into, how can I be strategic? We've been doing this for a few weeks, a few days, wherever you're at in your process. It's no longer, I'm putting together these worksheets because I want to give my students something, but how can we transition into, and I'm going to go back to that design thinking, whether using the Teach Further model or something else, where I can put together a purposeful learning opportunity for my students, because now I know that I'm thinking more, I'm thinking farther than just Friday. I'm thinking into the following week and the week after. And so if you're in a position right now where you are only able to send something to students for a set amount of time, how can you use some purposeful strategic planning to make that period of time important and valuable for your students and to make history so it's worth talking about? I think this idea is so important. So Mark Heller's joining us. Good morning, Mark. And he says, could be a win that comes out of this for equity's sake. I really do think that, Mark. I'm not trying to get on my soapbox, but I am thrilled that some hard conversations we've been ignoring or not had time to deal with or not had the need to address, like equity, is at the forefront of most of the conversations I'm a part of right now. And while every single time I get a question about, the teachers struggling that they don't have access to technology, it really does break my heart because I don't really have a solution for them that's going to make them feel better. We have to keep talking about it. We have to, because I've also had discussions with business leaders who are in affluent areas who are shocked. They're appalled that this is even a conversation right now in 2020. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad that, we brought the conversation up again. This is good.
Yeah, it speaks to our privilege.
Yeah.
The privilege issue. Yeah, I think, as you said that, I think that there's maybe three or four big themes I think that are come out of this. Equity is number one.
Sure.
By far, equity is there, and I am hoping, like you, that this finally, puts a spotlight on it. Sure. I think the other big theme I think that's going to come out of this is grading. Why do we need to grade? The kids that are able to do the work are doing the work, not because of the grade, because of the experience and because of the quality feedback, that they're getting. I think the relationship piece is coming to a new level, because I think that many teachers have forgotten why they got into education, and that is because of that relationship. And now that they're away from their kids, are realizing I need that, I need that for my well-being. And I think maybe the fourth one, big thing that'll come out of this is just this empowerment and fact that, so many teachers didn't think they can do this, and they are. Again, that you are asked overnight, in 2 hours, you were told to reshift everything you'd been taught since you were taught and modeled since you were a kid, and you reshift overnight, and man, you kicked ass. You did it. And so if you can do this, what else are you going to be able to overcome? So I'm hoping those big four themes will really, change education.
It's interesting. I agree with the four you said. I don't know that I would have picked all four of those, but I love this. I think the one that I'm still stuck on, and maybe I'd add this as the fifth, but maybe it actually goes into one of the four as I'm processing through that really powerful list, is this idea of teachers reevaluating the why of their instruction. And it probably does fit into one of those categories that you already listed, but I think the teachers that I'm doing the most coaching with right now are the ones that had a relatively traditional classroom where they truly viewed their role as an educator as more or less being a content delivery system. And those are, and the ones that have realized that and have now opened their mind to finding out what else is out there, and they're trying to be learners right now. That's the majority of the coaching I'm doing of these teachers that are saying, okay, I really did, for whatever reason, maybe not even cognizantly, I didn't realize that I really thought I was the smartest one in the room and I had to deliver the knowledge upon the students. And now I need to recognize that I can actually find other avenues to deliver the DOK, low DOK levels, the DOK level 1 and 2 information. And I actually need to be a facilitator of learning. I need to ask more questions. I need to challenge my students in ways that they can't just Google the answer. So how do I do that? And I'm really hoping that throughout this time, teachers can come back better, come back stronger, to lead classrooms that are keeping that depth of knowledge at the forefront of saying, I'm not going to stand in front of my room anymore and just talk. But now I'm going to facilitate discussion. I'm going to really make sure that my lesson planning is strategic, because there are other ways for students to consume the information. I want them to interact with the information. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that. And I love that last phrase, interact with it. Mm-hmm. It's interacting with it. It's not consuming it. And that's the key. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see the transition. And I think there's so many pieces. I loved your idea of grading. Grading is a hot topic. People get real flustered over that one. I'm sure you see that all the time. Yeah. But Mark Heller commented in here following up, like, yes, grading. And there are some people on the Teach Better team that we've been duking out grading for a while. We kind of all have our different pockets that we land in terms of how we feel like grading should be. Some more extreme than others. I'm going to call out Caitlin on the Teach Better team. She's about the farthest extreme of grading. And I love it because debating with her over grading is fascinating. And I think that that's been my biggest area of growth. That's a big statement to say, but one of my biggest areas of growth as an educator has been in my understanding of grading when I entered into the field, and where I am now. I think it's changed, 360, to understand that grading is not something that I feel strongly about at all anymore. It's so much more about feedback and finding the right motivational strategies for students. And if you're a teacher right now that's basing grading and that's the reason that your students are working hard, you've lost your ammo. So you got to find something else, right? There's got to be more to the purpose behind what we do,
Yep. Yeah. My friend Tom Herrick just sent me a blog that he's writing this morning for Solution Tree, and he said, and in it he was talking about how easy it would be to just have accomplished, not yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and hey, wait, that's kind of what we're seeing across the country right now
with our proficiency scale and yeah.
And if it's not yet, like you said, let me swoop in with the feedback. If it's accomplished, it's what's next. And you know, why couldn't we? You know, why can't we start thinking of that? Because we all know that's what works better.
You're right. You know, Brian Zwemke just commented, grading? No one's ever had an opinion on that. Like, that is truly, when we have districts that come to me and they're like, Ray, we're thinking of implementing standard-based grading. And I'm like, great. How are you changing your instruction before you go about that? Because the first thing that the majority of people say is, what grading platform do you like best? What grade book do you suggest? And I'm like, guys, this idea of focusing our feedback to be more driven on what students actually need versus assigning a number or a value to evaluate the student at the end. We need to shift our instruction to be more mastery focused. This is why a lot of the districts I'm working with are shifting to like a mastery framework, whether they use something else or they use the grid method, because it allows you to truly personalize a student's pathway that allows them to get the feedback they need when they need it, exactly in that moment. Because that way, when you're giving them feedback, the grades become irrelevant. So whether using a proficiency scale or a not yet and a yep, you got it. I mean, you have to have this pathway of when you get it, then what? So building in enrichment, building in scaffolded learning opportunities, doing in these pieces so that we can all get there just, you know, at our own pace when we need it. The feedback's massive. It's so important.
Exactly.
Exactly. Andrea commenting here, grading should not be punitive nor motivational to do the work. It's such a shift in students' mindset. It's absolutely true. And this is another comment here. You said it right, Ray. It's the ammo. We really need to find different, you know, tools in our toolbox to motivate our students and keep them engaged, because grades cannot be the reason they work. That's not enough anymore. So,
you know, Ray, my daughter is all into dance, and she takes she is like, you know, lyrical and jazz and ballet, all these different things. And you know what? She's never received a grade. And she continues to strive to the next level. Mm-hmm. You know, and so it's not, you know, as you know, it's not about the grade. And I think, and I love the honesty in that answer. I think we changed the kids' thinking by changing the adults' thinking in the early grades, so that, because if we did it right in the early grades, where it was all focused on the feedback and the next step, then we wouldn't have the kids in the fixed mindsets that they're in when they get to high school.
Well, and Greg, that's funny. Now you're talking about kind of the short term and the long term. Like a long term, we need our teachers in younger grades to instill this mindset, right? In the short term, that's not a cop-out if you're listening right now and you teach 9th grade history. Like, you can control the narrative. It's going to be harder than ever. And we have a user in here. I don't know if Lisa's listening. I love Lisa, always comments, and we always push back on this idea together. So she's one of my favorite people to be live with. But high school's tough, middle school's tough, teaching high grade levels, it's a tough job. But you can control the narrative. So does it mean that you're in a tricky spot because they have all this history that's teaching them that you might be incorrect? Absolutely. But you absolutely can be a part of changing this narrative. So if you're listening right now, no matter your grade level or your content area, start having these conversations. And I would say the first step, and I know this is so scary to teachers, I love transparent, honest conversation about this. Some of my favorite conversations I have with my students about cheating or grading or any of those like really, you know, tough conversations, I ask them why. Keep asking why. Keep talking about, you know, how the power in these ideas only exist because we've decided they do. And if you can really start to have tough conversations, transparent conversations with students about how grades cannot be the driver and how you want more for them, you can start opening up their minds regardless of their age. So I'm excited for teachers to start doing that. I think that's important.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking on that, and one of the questions I saw just pop up is with the parents, and how do we change the parents? And I've seen some amazing work where people have started using either Seesaw or Flipgrid, some of those tools to show parents how feedback changes and how feedback can make a difference without the grade. And that has started. I can think of one seventh grade I'm working with in Wisconsin, and they went to feedback using Seesaw, and they basically did it from a student-led conferences approach that totally changed parents' beliefs. And they had very, very conservative parent beliefs on grades. But once parents saw it through that process, then they became a believer in it. And so I think there's some parent education that has to go with that.
You are so spot on, Greg. And I know that we're hitting our 45-minute mark. We've been live, so I know that our video is ending soon. And if you have any following questions, please feel free to post them here. We do want to get to it before our video ends. But you just literally shared my favorite topic. And that's this idea of teachers feel extremely responsible for educating their students. And they really believe, and I say they, including myself, as a teacher myself with 6th grade students, my students are the 150 sixth graders, the 11 and 12-year-olds that sit in my classroom every day. And the reality is that's not all of them. We have such a responsibility to do better with our parent communication. I've worked with teachers that just sit and they love to vent to me. Parents don't understand. They push back. They don't let me do what I want. You are an educator because you spent years and years in school to become an educator, and you spend every day, hopefully, growing a professional network to be a learner constantly. Your parents aren't doing that in this field. They don't know the impact of students that do the work that you're trying to do. They don't know all these pieces. And I don't blame parents. I blame us. We need to educate our parents. If we really feel like standard-based grading is important, we need to teach them why. For a lot of you listening who have taken the standard-based grading course, there's a few of them, at Teach Better Academy, there's a silly little turtle activity. We need to be doing activities with our students and our parents so they can start to understand, because everybody's scared of things that they don't understand. Nobody wants to change stuff. We turned out just fine is the phrase that we hear all the time. Why are we changing things? We turned out just fine. And my favorite response is, you did. You turned out fabulous. But we need to grow. Just like when you were a kid, you didn't have a cell phone, and now we all have cell phones. So we need to educate our families. It's just you were so right that needs to be at the forefront. Greg, there's a lot of comments coming in. I do want to thank everybody that has been interacting with our video. If you are listening right now and you want to be somebody who can interact and comment and challenge the things that we're discussing, please feel free to head to teachbettergroup.com. It's our private Facebook group. These videos are happening every single morning, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, for our daily drop-in. Greg, we are so lucky, so fortunate to have had you join us this morning. There were so many good pieces that I know teachers and administrators will continue to take away to kind of serve their communities better. And I want to make sure that everyone can stay connected with you, pick up your book, and continue learning from you as I have for years. So do you mind kind of sharing kind of how people can stay connected to you?
Yeah, it's, at Greg J. Walcott on Twitter, and my book is Significant 72. So it's just significant72.com. And they can reach me one of those ways. That'd be great.
It's perfect. For everyone listening, if you need anything, our team and Greg and everyone that we've been able to bring on our daily drop-in really are committed beyond this conversation to helping you in any way possible. So please make sure you continue to reach out and let us know what you need. We hope that you have an amazing morning working with students today and celebrating the fact that we are all just striving to be our best selves. If you haven't taken a peek over at teachbetter.com, we did have our new blog series released yesterday, which is dedicated to coming back better. So go check that out if you're looking for something extra special. And we appreciate all the work you do. So Greg, thank you again for joining us. Thank you everybody that was here, and we'll see you guys again sometime soon. So see you tomorrow.